Hello, Bugle Boy models and hot kachinas. I'm Joey.
Hello, I'm Matt.
I'm Kristen.
And this is Messing with the Master, a podcast where three lifelong Tori Amos fans reflect on the iconic singer-songwriter's catalog by thoughtfully and intentionally reorganizing each album into fresh playlists that explore Tori's musical legacy, as well as our own interconnected personal narratives and friendship, which began with a shared passion for Tori's music over 20 years ago. On this week's episode, we book a round-trip ticket to Venus and back, Tori's surprisingly prompt follow-up to 1998's From the Choir Girl Hotel.
I took a taxi from LA to Venus in 1985. Was electromagnetically sucked back into a party going on that night. It was the glories of the 80s. Karma drawn up in lines and to be a good boy model saying, baby, it's freaky, you sure love me right.
After an epic world tour, Tori had implied that she'd be taking a break from recording for a while and planned to release a live album with a few new bonus tracks. As Tori is wont to do, those bonus tracks developed into a full-blown 11-track album with a bonus live disc that was released on September 21st, 1999, my 17th birthday. Thank you very much. To Venus and Back is deeply beloved by fans, and for good reason. It shows Tori and her band, Matt Chamberlain on drums, John Evans on bass, and Steve Caton on guitars, at the height of their ensemble powers, and Tori at her most sonically experimental. As Tori herself once instructed, if it's too loud, turn it up. And that's precisely what she does on To Venus and Back. The songs feel like an organic extension of the Choir Girl sound, but to say they sounded all similar to one another would be listener malpractice. Venus occupies a sonic space that is truly unlike anything Tori has done up to that point or has done since. The mixing, the engineering, the drum looping, the vocal distortions, the manipulation of the Bosendorfer, the introduction of new and strange synthesizer samples. Every singular moment is its own dynamic piece of a dark, twisty, truly otherworldly puzzle that Tori has constructed with this record. It's cliche to say it was ahead of its time in 1999, but given how fresh and bold and immersive it sounds in the year of our Lord 2024, no one would argue that Tori truly wrote, performed, and produced a collection of songs that pushed not only her own boundaries, but the boundaries of her listeners. Perhaps Tori summed it up best herself in the lyric from Spring Haze when she instructs us that, quote, the only way out is to go so far in. So join us as we break the terror of the urban spell. This is Messing with the Master, To Venus and Back. Hi, guys.
Oh, my.
Hello.
We are excited to talk about this.
We are. I wanted to bring something up, though, before we get into the... It's related, don't worry.
Okay.
I want to talk about, first off, the huge... alarming controversy from the last episode, from the American Doll Posse episode. Yeah. I think we need to talk about it because it was so incendiary that we owe it to ourselves and our listeners to unpack it a little bit. But Kristen Keys added 0 point to her version of American Doll Posse, which was really shocking and still is shocking. It's the most shocking thing that's happened on our podcast to date. But I wanted to give Kristen a minute to talk about that and maybe defend herself a little bit. But, since we are covering Venus tonight, I think it's appropriate that we are discussing 0 point this week. Yeah.
Well, I thought about it a lot, I've thought about, do I break rules? Do I put it on tonight's track listing? You'll see what happens. But I still feel that I'm at peace with where 0 point landed for me in the last episode. I think American Doll Posse is about every single archetype, type of woman that Tori plays with. And I think that, because 0 Point is a totally free agent who was mixed so much later than she was recorded, I think she can go anywhere. The end.
Interesting. I think that you bring up something. You bring up something that we should maybe discuss a little bit further. How do we come up with these lists? We've touched on it a little bit before. You mentioned the rules. No, there are no real rules to this podcast, other than we're trying to keep our playlist really centered around the eras in which we're covering, just because that makes it easier for us to discuss. It's less of a curveball.
Right.
So for us, we want to always try to keep it around that era, but there's a lot of room for creativity and for, doing those goops and gags that Kristen likes to do every now and again that keeps us on our toes.
I did one.
I mean, on this podcast. I'm talking also in life.
Okay, great.
So I think, as we move on through the first season, it's important for us to keep, really on track with each era that we're doing and discuss in each episode in great detail those records because, we want to celebrate the canon here in our first season. And, looking forward to, maybe what's going to be happening in the second season, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to turn it up a notch, if you will. We're going to maybe look at B-sides. We're going to be looking at top favorite tracks. We may do a holiday episode. We're going to have special guests. So right now we're covering the canon and figuring out sort of like the lay of the land of the canon. Joey, what do you think about all of this?
Well, I appreciate the bold swing that Kristen made. She tried it. I think that for me, the way I understand this is that it's not just a playlist. It is like a reimagining of the album proper, which is why I would like to just state that if she also tries to squeeze 0 Point in on this playlist, we might just have to make this a duo podcast because somebody can't follow the rules. I'm just kidding. She edits and produces, so we can't do it without her. But I think
you're right, though. You bring up something important that I just want to back you up really quick. That when you use a non-album track, a B-side, an unreleased song, or a song from a film soundtrack, I believe it can be used one time. So
yeah.
Okay, that's tough to hear.
It's a. I mean, again, it's make believe, but we are trying to keep ourselves anchored and not cheat too much. I do want to say that I've been re-listening to 0 Point quite a bit since our Doll Posse episode when this
shattering happened.
This political controversy was foisted upon us, and we were forced to reckon with it in real time together. I've been listening to it, and I couldn't disagree with her more that it doesn't belong on American Doll Posse. But it really helped to prepare me for this episode and to think more about it. But I do want to say this. I know Kristen very well. I know her love for 0 Point, and what I figured out though is that the reasons that she included it were very complimentary of Doll Posse, like the fact that she thought that 0 Point, which is so epic and so of a different type of Tori, could hold that the album American Doll Posse could actually rise up. Like, so in some ways I feel like she lifted the quality of Doll Posse by inserting 0 Point, and I think that was a very well-intentioned thing to do. So I get it, and the more I listened to it, the more I heard little bits that made me understand why it resonated with Doll Posse for Kristen. So I think that it was a bold move, not one that I would have done, but I can appreciate it thinking about it. So I still stand firm. It doesn't belong on there, but I think that it was done with like a really, it was really like, it's not quite the same because it was recorded in the same era, but I feel like it's a little bit like me putting Not David Bowie onto The Beekeeper, like reinserting it back on, with saying even though the actual finished product of The Beekeeper is not as edgy or hard or as like interesting sonically as that one song, I wanted it there because I thought it could recontextualize what the existing album, what it is. So I understand that intention. And I know that in Kristen's view, because the mixing happened later and closer to the Doll Posse era. But the thing is, we don't have a lot of evidence of how much was changed. Like my thinking is that she just took off vocal distortion and lowered Steve Caton's guitars. I think that's all she did to it. If I'm being frank, I don't think she did anything else besides that, personally.
Okay, so, man, we could do like a whole episode on 0 Point, especially after the shattering.
I know.
But I think you're probably right, like if I had to guess. But, like, I'm so literal. I'm just like such a literal person that to me, when that song came out, like, that's where it lives in the timeline for me. I know where it was written and where it was recorded and the feelings around it. And we'll talk about it when you guys have it on your list more. But,
well,
like,
documented in writing by her that it was supposed to be on that album. Like, it's on...
Yes.
It's in the liner notes,
Yeah, for sure. And we were all like hungry for it immediately. And then even like in the piano, whatever the video where she's like, I listened to this the other day and I thought it held up.
And I think that it's held up. I just heard it for the first time a few weeks ago, and after many years, and we mixed it and it made it. I fell down to the ground.
And again, it's just like, for me, it's like a literal timeline. But I don't know. I think I could go a lot of places. But maybe it's because it's the B-side vibe, man. The B-sides, they trick you, Like Siren.
Yeah.
Where do you put Siren? I know where it can/should go, or doesn't go. But, like, where does it really go?
It'll be interesting to see what happens when
already know
Pele
That's a good question.
comes around. Well, I think that we've beaten a dead weave here, and I think that we can move forward. But I'm curious, what was the polling? That poll was really funny. That 0
Nobody
point.
wanted 0 Point on ADP.
No, nobody agreed with you.
I was just
nobody
me.
wanted.
Some people did. Some people
they
agreed.
Wasn't there a YouTube comment somewhere where somebody was into it?
They said stop cheating.
You got to give the people what they want.
The sexiest thing is trust. So if you
I didn't cheat tonight.
if you betray. All right. Well, we've relitigated this. Maybe we'll have a bonus episode down the road, coming back to it and to see how we feel. But thank you for being so vulnerable, Kristen. And
Shut the fuck up. I hate you guys. Fuck off.
This is great.
Oh, okay.
This was fun. All right, so To Venus and Back. Let's talk about it. I mentioned in the intro that it's my birthday album. I was 17. It was my senior year of high school, a few weeks in, and it was so incredible to go to the record store. This time it was Things from England, the one that I mentioned in the past, and
Yes. On the Jersey Shore.
It wasn't
Right?
the Jersey Shore one. No, that was
Red Bank?
I forget the name of that one. No, Things from England was just a local one, a town over. The place that also was the Ticketmaster. So it's where I got my tickets for the plug tours and for these two. Although no, not for these, because the 5.5 Weeks tour, they released all the tickets at once. Do you remember that debacle? Do you have any memory of it? They released all the 5.5 Weeks at the same time on the same day, and so we had front row after the pit for the show we saw one night, and then we had like 40th row in the back of the amphitheater for the next night, because you had to like choose which one you were going to get a better ticket for. It sucked. It was terrible.
My 5.5 weeks was GA, so I didn't have to deal with any of that. And
you
I was
got
too
a
young
full
to
show
drive,
though,
so.
right? But you got full
Yeah.
shows. You got the Dallas and
I
back.
got
You
to
didn't get the
Dallas and
Alanis.
back.
Right. So
Yeah,
you got like
yeah.
real shows. We got like the 12 song opening for Alanis thing.
Right.
Was that your experience too, Matt?
I did not go to a show in 1999.
Oh,
Lord.
Ooh.
Talk about a controversy, right?
Yeah.
Going to
because-
concerts
yeah.
and doing stuff like that wasn't what I was interested in then. I was into music very much. I lived in Michigan, and I was really into rave culture and going out to raves and listening to electronic music. So I was doing that and working, and not a lot of time or room for concerts. I remember I wanted to go. It was at a good venue in Michigan that I really liked. And it was one of those places that had like the lawn seating, and I was just like, not going to do that. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely tricky for 5.5 weeks because I think I only went to 2 on that, Camden, and that was the one which was a great show. And that was the one that we just lucked into first row after the pit center. So that was awesome. And then the next night was it was called the PNC Arts Center. Now it's called something else, I think. It's where we saw the 40th birthday show as well, that like big outdoor venue. And we were basically like third from the last row before the lawn started. So there was just no rhyme or reason to why you were where you were. So yeah, I was always envious of those who got like those extra shows like you did. And like she did that the final show in Seattle, I think, that there's a great bootleg up somewhere. But yeah, it came out.
Maddie, is this when you were working at the pizza place?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it was. Thank you for remembering Pizzapopolis in Detroit. Still love them. Still have a lot of friends that work there. Pizza's great. I believe they ship frozen pizzas, deep dish, nationwide.
Oh,
We can link
okay.
it.
I mean, I did work there, yes, and I believe that was probably around the time I quit, because that place was, like really a volatile work environment, but
Sure. Yeah.
great pizza.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. The two often go hand in hand. So,
Yes. Says our Italian American co-host.
so back to Venus and Back. Yeah, so I'm jumping right into my, because it was a birthday album for me and the excitement of it. And I've said this on the podcast before. I was listening on like janky speaker system that only had one like input, so I didn't know for years that Josephine had a drum track. And I heard things quite differently until I got like a new sound system and some headphones later on. So there was a lot that I know that I missed in terms of the intricacy. And I have to say that all these years later, especially in my many, many re-listens, though they didn't transfer it to Dolby Atmos, but it's lossless on Apple Music, and I have my AirPods, and I can just hear everything, and I'm like, whoa, this almost sounds remastered. It's not remastered, but it sounds like so different than my memory of it. Like I remember there was a Tory fan that I used to chat with, and he once said, what did he say? He said he thought that listening to Venus and Back was sometimes like listening to it through a wall, like in another room, because of the sound quality. And I remember understanding what he meant, like a song like Concertina or like, but now I'm listening to it, I'm like, that's not true. Like I'm hearing it differently. Like the intent, like this didn't sound like sound quality was compromised because it was rushed. It sounded like every decision was intricate as fuck about how she wanted things to sound, and how she wanted to layer, and what she wanted to obscure and distort, and what she wanted to put up front, what she wanted to echo. We'll get into it as we speak more about it, but man, what a triumph of sound and engineering and intention, and the marriage of content and form, like what the song itself is versus what the production of the song is. I feel like there are almost two, like there's the song itself as written, and then there's the finished product on the record, and they like live into like two realms. It's really kind of amazing. I've always loved this album. It's always been way up on the list for me, and I am like re-energized and like I've fallen in love all over again with it, which is really exciting and part of the point, I think, of the work that we're doing here. But man, it's so good. It's delicious and dark and beautifully produced and written, and just like it's stunning. Like it knocked me over the head doing this work, and I'm not sick of it. I want to keep listening to it. I keep going back to the songs, like they're fresh. And I
love what you said about all of the textures and details, because another thing that I really picked up on this time, kind of similarly, I don't know what the right term is for this because we've established not a musician, but the way it fills the space, the spatial relation of the sounds to each other within the track are really interesting and surprising and just really unique. And I think it's worth pointing out that at this time, you know, Tori was going through a lot in the public eye, and how awful that must be, but to put out an album of substance immediately, you know, following a tour, doing all of this shit that she didn't really want to do probably at the time. This could have been a real throwaway. This could have been a live disc, period, and it would have been fine. This could have been a collection of songs that didn't matter, plus a live disc. But there was a real, you know, the real sort of like A+ effort was made to make sure these songs were just really their own thing, and they had their own place to live, just like all of the songs on all of the other records. And I think that's a really big piece of the puzzle with this album.
Absolutely.
I want to note, last night I was watching the Charlie Rose interview, and there's one part that's apropos to this where she's like, "Oh, they call me an ant fucker because I don't know if you guys remember this. They call me an ant fucker because I'm after every single small detail." And he's sort of like, "Why?" And like her face is like, "Because it makes a difference." Like that's what she said. She's like, "Because it makes a difference," or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing.
Rock star demands. I've never seen such attention to every aspect of it, which seems like just fun. There is this obsession.
Well, you know what they call me?
What do they call you?
They call me an ant.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because every cell, every shape, we spend time tweaking and tweaking.
Here's the question. Why are you so obsessed with every cell?
Because it makes a difference.
In quality or sales?
Well, in quality, I mean, you know, I see myself sort of as a small to medium vineyard. And they usually don't sell as much as the Screw Top wine down in Safeway. But I don't make wine for Safeway. God bless Safeway. Safeway is a necessary thing. But that's not why if I'm a winemaker, I'm not going to make Screw Top wine.
But then when I was listening last night, I have these, newer AirPods that I hadn't had until recently, and I heard every single thing throughout the album. I even Googled last night. I Googled "Was to Venus and Back Remastered" because I was like, I don't think it was, but I can't remember. But I'm hearing everything, right? And how could it just be the headphones? It's really weird that you said that because I remember Googling it, and I was like, I'm embarrassed that I'm even Googling this because I should know, and I know it's not, but it sounds like it is. So I was so confused, But like even at the beginning of Josephine, you can hear her take like one breath, Like you can, I don't know if you guys remember this, but like you can hear this one breath. And I was like, I've never heard that before. And just different layers in, well, we'll get to it, but like just different layers everywhere that I'd never heard before. Amazing.
Well, I have a memory of Tori saying, she's said it a few times, I think, in her career that she, you know, and this is, you know, a bit ironic because not every album is available in vinyl, and maybe, I don't know if To Venus and Back even had a vinyl, but she basically said that she didn't make albums, like she wasn't making records that would sound like a CD was never going to give you the fullness of what she was doing. And that might just really be true. And as technology has gotten better, like maybe we're finally hearing To Venus and Back the way they actually mixed and recorded it, because they have all this, you know, expensive, high tech, you know. That's the one thing about Tori and Mark. They're always upgrading and finding new microphones, new ways to mix and record, and I just wonder if we're just hearing it now. To Venus and Back, we're hearing it now in 2024 the way that it was supposed to sound, and maybe we weren't quite hearing it that way because we didn't have like the technology. Like she had, you know, the risers and the, you know, she's hearing a full room of sound when they're doing this, and we're just getting this compressed, like no matter how careful she is, we're getting compression, right? And then you can buy a CD, but if you don't have a good, you know, you have a shitty Discman, you have a broken boombox, you have one speaker that doesn't work the way I did, or you have to listen in your car. Like, think about all the varying qualities, the varying sound quality in the vehicle for which people can listen to the music. This has been democratized in the past 20 years. We have all, you know, the same, many of us have the same earbuds, we have the same phones, we have this, right? So everything being sort of like monopolized in a way is shitty for a million reasons. But in some ways, I wonder if the technology is just finally catching up to what she did, especially on an album like To Venus and Back. Like finally we can all hear it the way it was intended to be heard. And that's an exciting thought, right? That's why, you know, I said in the intro, like it was ahead of its time then. It feels sort of like contemporary right now, but also feels like really like its own thing, you know, because she really is a genius, and this is a good example of it, you know?
I think one of the things that I both found challenging and really, really gravitated toward in this re-listen project was that Venus, to me, stands out on its own because it doesn't have a real like thorough concept like all of the other records. I'm not saying that as a judgment or a value thing. It just doesn't, and that's okay. Albums don't have to have concepts, but I think it stands out for that reason, and it makes it a little bit more elusive.
Right.
And maybe you guys disagree with me. Maybe you think there is more of a concept or something conceptual running throughout it, other than, you know, space, which is echoed in the marketing and in the materials, and in the lyrics, maybe to an extent in the production. I get that, but I think in terms of like when you look at A Boys for Pele, when you look at even like A Night of Hunters, those are like novels, right? And maybe this is
well, it's. There's a concept, but like not how Tori does a concept. Like when she does it, she really goes all in, right? And this has a theme. This has a palette for sure. But is it a concept album?
Yeah.
Yes. But is it a concept album? No, I don't think.
I think that it has a musical concept, as a sound concept, but it doesn't have a narrative concept. That's the difference.
That's really well said. Exactly.
And she didn't really start framing it like that explicitly until Strange Little Girls. That was really the beginning. That was really when she started doing that. Like, you're right. She talks about conceptual stuff like, oh, this is the diary. This is the Impressionist painting. This is the, you know, volcano goddess who, you know, blah, blah, you know. But if you read those interviews or you go to the Myth of Tori, and you look at just all the things that she says about those early albums, she's all over the place in like the best of ways, because she is being sort of obtuse and the music is sort of abstract, and thus it lends itself to her saying 60 different things about each song if she wants to, right? Because I think she was a little bit less concerned with having like she was more of a poet, and she was not interested in explaining it to you. Let's figure it out. Something shifted around the Strange Little Girl's time. And I wonder if she just, we talked about this, and we'll talk about it more when we get to Strange Little Girls, but how she just maybe began to feel more comfortable concealing and holding parts of herself back, and then creating character and story as a way to not have to give us so much. And I want to just go back to what you touched on, Matt, to be more explicit. We didn't know this until much later, until Piece by Piece was written. But Tori was really explicit. She didn't want to tour in '99. She was struggling to conceive. She was miscarrying. She was sick. And she was forced by the record company to go tour. And they put her on this double bill. Tori, who's been touring by herself since the beginning, suddenly was a de facto opening act for Alanis Morissette. The irony is that I think that the 1999 performances are her very best ever. I think her band performances are like perfection. Her voice, her demeanor, the reinventions of some of those songs like Professional Widow and Blood Roses. I mean, I think that 99 for me is the top. And I'll defend that, and I can say a lot about it, but the 1999 performances, she and the band got it just right. And it was just remarkable. And I hate to think that she was feeling so lousy and was so upset. We know she was angry on that tour. She was yelling at people. She was cursing. She was, she's her only pay-per-view special in existence, and it's documented with her giving the finger and telling somebody to eat her pussy, right? Because she's yelling at somebody in the audience. Like, she was unhinged and off her rocker in a lot of ways, and was giving weird media tours, but she wasn't feeling well. She wasn't feeling well spiritually, physically, and she talks about that at length. So she was really, really struggling. So we were getting like, and to think that those bits of pain are not woven through To Venus and Back, like To Venus and Back, like most of it to me feels like, it feels like the Tori who wrote and performed Cruel was like, I'm just going to do a whole album of this. Be right back. It's that moody, synthy, floating, speak, sing, dark. I mean, it's got all sorts of colors and flavors to it, but it feels like it's that girl. It's like if one song from Choir Girl could be on Venus, it would be Cruel. You can move Cruel right to Venus, and they feel completely linked. And one thing that I think goes unsaid is that when I was listening to Venus and Back, not only spacey sounds, but it feels like it really builds on those little bits of water, that feeling of being underwater or floating in water that Choir Girl had. Venus feels like I'm in a womb. Like I feel like I'm in. So whether she says it or not, I feel like she's so preoccupied with pregnancy, and I feel like there's something womb-like. I mean, Kristen, you've had babies. You know what it sounds like to listen to a heartbeat on the Doppler and how spacey it sounds, right? That you're not just hearing a heartbeat, you're hearing grinding, you're hearing whistles, you're hearing... It's spooky. It's spacey. And I feel like she wanted that on the record. I have memory of, pregnancies and, through surrogacy, but hearing those things and the inner workings of that system sound like outer space. And I think that it's very intentional on this record.
Interesting. I picked up on a little bit of what you were saying in terms of the water for me, because this record is so tied to that space and that like galactic travel that I imagine to be some sort of like very bad disaster. I always equate the water part of this album with re-entry back, from space, coming back into Earth and crashing into the water and being underwater that way, rather than the ways you might usually be. Interesting.
Y'all, it's so wild as we've been doing these re-listenings. Of course we know it, but just thinking about how much Tori writes about, like, earth, space, water, like the elements a lot, right? But I really think what I would have said Venus to me sounds like is, I guess, similar to pregnancy, is like there is this veil that you're very aware of. At least I was, as a host of 2 babies. And it sounds otherworldly and stuff, but it's very strange to think there is something living that is not living in this world, and it's right there, but you can't touch it and you can't experience it and you don't know what it hears. And even my kids now were like, what? Like Ellis the other day said, what was I before? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, what comes before and what comes after? And I was like, I don't, great question.
She's 5.
I mean, it's probably because kids say weird shit. But anyway, I was just thinking, it just like there is this veil, and as they get older, like I think the veil kind of like falls away, but it's like these like last grasps of like talking about this veil. And I see it, I see her aging out of that, but like it feels very real when they're babies, because they were inside and then they're out in the world. But yeah,
they've still got like one foot in that before, and And I say this to Kel a lot jokingly, but I really mean it. And I think Tori, even though she had yet to become mother to a living child at this point, like I joke to Kel all the time that I'm a portal. I'm like, my body is a portal. My body is a portal between here and there. And I think what, if your first child, is here or not, I still think that there is that experience of like, you've touched something beyond the realm, and it's alien. It's magic. It's heartbreaking. It's just beyond like what you can imagine. And it's something that you didn't know before. And she doesn't have to say it explicitly. And that goes back to like her not sort of explicitly articulating a concept, but sort of leaving it for us to hear it. And it would make sense that, especially if she was intending to just record some bonus tracks, well, the bonus tracks would probably be leftovers from Choir Girl writing sessions, right? So it would make sense that she was in that headspace, and then she, developed it into its own thing. So I mean it when I say in that intro that it's an extension of Choir Girl, but they don't sound the same. They're not redundant of each other. They're not, they don't share a structure. They don't share a soundscape. They really don't. They're very different. And it's kind of remarkable for her to make 2 such different records in such a short period of time. But I think it would be naive of us to think that she was not still, especially knowing what we know now about what she was going through physically, professionally, personally. I think that it would be silly of us to think that the things about Choir Girl didn't carry over, especially because, you know, she probably had this sense of triumph after Choir Girl being released and well received, and the Plug tour going so well and feeling so good about herself, and then probably thinking, you know, it's only on the up now. And then that wasn't so. It was like, oh shit, I made a record about a miscarriage and I'm still fucking miscarrying. I'm still struggling. My body is still betraying me. I'm still like, you know, as, you know, I've not experienced it physically myself, but, you know, I've mentioned our struggles with surrogacy and loss over the years on the road to have our son. And when you think, we've got to be done, like our bad luck is over, like this is gonna, and then it's not, you think you're gonna go crazy. You think like you don't know how to, like, you really think you're gonna lose your mind because you can't see a way out. So I think that she is trying to find a way out of it on this, you know, on this record. And it's interesting that it all happened for her after this record, right? She gets pregnant with Tosh shortly after this, and really sort of make some very different decisions about what she's going to do musically and with her career. And it's maybe one of the only times that she really disappeared from us and we really didn't know what she was up to, because, you know, she was really keeping to herself. And, you know, and she details this in Piece by Piece as well, the way her sister was helping her, you know, find alternative routes to take care of herself during her pregnancy, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it's just an interesting through line, and I hear Venus and think about Venus just so differently than I did, you know, just a few months ago when I would listen to a random track, now that we're doing this. And so that's, you know, something I really, you know, in all seriousness, really appreciate about what we do, spending time together to talk about the records, but like new entryways into it. And I hope that those watching or listening feel compelled to go back. We hear from a lot of you that you do feel compelled to go back and to think about it in your own way. But, you know, it's all there for us. Like Tori does so much. It's all there, you know. It's there for us when we need to go further with it and do more with it.
And even down to, you know, once giving us something called Tales of a Librarian and encouraging us all to be our own sort of librarians around her music.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think that's exactly what's going on there. Librarianism.
Did you want to say anything about when you first got the record, or when you first heard it? Was there anything memorable?
I mean, I can say for myself, I know I believe, coming back from some sort of like overnight party, some sort of rave, and I drove a aqua
What color
blue.
was your hair? What color was your hair?
My hair was probably blonde,
Okay.
and I was driving a aqua blue Ford Escort 5-speed.
Oh my God.
And I stopped at a record store in downtown Detroit. You know, maybe it wasn't an overnight party. Maybe I was working late. I don't remember. But I got the album during the daytime, and it was really beautiful outside. And I had a long drive home. It was about an hour drive home to where I lived. So I put the record on, and I just remember the weather being really beautiful, and being really deeply drawn into the music as I was driving, and it put me in a really good frame of mind. Surprisingly, because it was very dark, but I loved I loved the music. I just immediately, the entire thing, all of it.
You know, what's really interesting about my experience was it was very similar to 98. It was only a year and change later. Same thing, like Sam Goody at the mall, go get the album on the day of. But I remember, you know, going home, listening, and I remember being, like, I loved it. I loved it immediately. But also having, like, a little bit of, like, apprehension and being like, is she ever just going to play a song with just the piano again? Like, I was like, I love this, but, like, does this keep going in this way? And, of course, like, I'm there for it all, but I was just like, I don't know what comes next. I just remember being very, like, unsettled by that. Kind of interesting. That's, like, my biggest takeaway from 99.
Yeah.
There were no solo songs in this era at all, really.
No.
This was
Bizarre.
a really, really techie era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no solo songs, but a lot of. But she's the thing is too is because you can't identify it. Like we know now that she is going hard on synthesizers. She's playing the whole album, but you can't. We were still making that association between Tori and piano, and it was hard to. I'm
Yes.
with you. Like you hear something like Riot Poof, and you're like, "This is cool," I think, but who is this, right? Like doesn't resemble. This is not Baker Baker. You know, it's like this is like the complete opposite. Like I'm confused by what I'm listening to, right?
Yeah.
I think it brings me back to the Tori as director thing again, right? Let's talk about Martin Scorsese again. Everybody wants Martin Scorsese to make a gangster film. He does it better than anyone. When he makes
Right.
The Age of Innocence, a lot of people like it, but you know, people get a little bit weirded out that he's making a period drama, right? I think that if you love a great director or a great musician, like Kristen said, you just have to be all in and you have to be
Right.
up for whatever or wherever they're going to take you. And it's really hard if it's like the musician or the director who changed your life and they're doing something that's making you feel challenged or a little bit out of your comfort zone. That's tough. But I think, you know, you got to trust. Sexiest thing is trust, as we've said.
That's right.
Yeah.
She's
Well,
right
again,
again.
this is why context is important, and I go back to what I'm saying about tours contextualizing albums, because you hear things, and this was weird too because the shows were happening before the album was released, so we were hearing songs. Like the first show that I was at was the first time she did Concertina,
Weird.
and especially in '99, it sounded nothing like the version on the record. She did Juarez, it sounded quite different. So the songs that she was performing in advance of the album, you're hearing it, you don't know what she's saying because you can't understand the lyrics because you never heard them before. It was a very, very odd experience to hear brand new music. That's probably the only time it's ever happened. I don't think it's happened since, but it was a strange experience to hear multiple new songs. Bliss was the only one that I heard that I knew because that was the single. And these shows were in July and the album came out in September. So it was really, it was just an odd experience. Everybody's trying to figure out like, oh, this must be Concertina. I think that's what she's saying. And you know, not playing the synthesizer sound, not just like drums and piano and, you know, just very, very, it was disorienting and exhilarating, but yeah, it was an odd thing. And we'll talk about that when we mess, I think, about like the relationship between the way the songs sound on the record versus the way they sound live in the 25 years after.
Kristen Keys, I think we're ready to hear your playlist.
Yeah.
It's time for you to mess with the master.
We're ready.
We've been hearing
I
about
don't-
some goop and gag for all goddamn
Okay.
week.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's not the biggest goop and gag ever. Now I feel like maybe I oversold my goop and my gag.
It's
You did
literally all I
oversell
had
it
to look
last
forward to.
time, so
Okay, so I did the concept space. I have a concept playlist, which is
Okay.
the solar system. Each song has been assigned a planetary figure, something in our solar system. So we're going to start with the sun, which is bliss.
Wow.
This is the source of life. It's referencing Tori's dad. It's referencing father-daughter. It's that eternal struggle of I'm part of you, can't get away from you. It's the sun. The sun rises and sets every day. It is there. The sun is bliss. First song. Next, we go to Mercury, who is glory of the 80s. Why? Mercury is the messenger god in mythology, friends. So because of the nostalgia, it can be like a message or a postcard from the 80s. So glory of the 80s is Mercury. Y'all, I was fucking cracking myself up when I was doing this. I was like, I'm so clever. Ha, ha, ha. Okay. So Venus is, can you guys guess what Venus is? No. Venus is
It
lust.
better not be 0 point.
It's not, Venus is not 0 point.
Is it
Venus
lust?
It's lust. Obviously, Venus is the goddess of love, desire, sex, fertility. But really important is one of the myths around, what is it, Inanna or Ishtar, is that she descends into the underworld. So there's some themes coming back to the music and the lyrics. It's more than just that she is, you know, the goddess of love, beauty, sex, desire. But the themes of like also like diving into the underworld as well. And she faces numerous trials, just like our friend Tori Ellen. So Earth is Datura, obviously, because it's get my garden. You know what I mean? 9 minutes of a garden. And next to Earth, which is Earth's moon, is we have Suede. I think Suede, obviously, it mentions the moon. But if I had to even just go off of sound alone, I feel like Suede feels very much what I would picture it to be like standing on the moon. Like no atmosphere, kind of cold. Those little pops and stuff is what I would imagine like rocks hitting the surface to sound like. It sounds very lunar to me. Next up is Mars, which is Juarez, of course. Mars is, you know, deities of war and conflict. It's red, it's fiery, it's pain, it's suffering. So Juarez is Mars, always embodying conflict and aggression. Jupiter was kind of fun to play with who I thought fit in the Jupiter spot of our solar system, which was Josephine. And that's because Jupiter signifies luck. And I was reading about Napoleon and Josephine to kind of get into it and like really just make this fun for myself. But Napoleon really thought of Josephine as like a good luck charm, which I didn't know. And he was really obsessed with her. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but she was like, it was her second marriage. He, you know, took in his kids as her own, which his family was not into. But there was a lot of, it was like very unconventional relationship. But because of that, Jupiter's moon Io, I've made Spring Hayes, because in the end, there's a demise, right? They both die, and Josephine had several attempts on her life because she was married to Napoleon as he's like leading the French army. But so like kind of the mythology of Jupiter and Io, I thought fit really well with Napoleon, Josephine, and then Spring Hayes ultimately ending. It's not a bad omen. Saturn is Concertina. And Saturn is the god of time in mythology. And what I really liked is, to me, like, Concertina feels like it just, like, unravels and it unfolds. And one of my favorite lines in Concertina, which is probably all of our favorite lines, is particle by particle, she slowly changes. And I'm thinking about Saturn out there very, very far in the solar system. Those planets that are like further out in the solar system are very like isolated, and I think Concertina can kind of like stand on its own. You can kind of put it in multiple tours or different tours, and you can kind of slot it in a set list wherever you need. And Saturn, also with like all the layers, you have the rings, and it felt like it fit to me. So Uranus, I thought was Riot Poof, because did y'all know that fucking planet spins on its side? Did you know that? It's like tilted. So my son is very into... what are you going to say? I already know it. Go ahead. I know where you're going. Go ahead. Say it.
No, please go on. No, I'm not going to say anything.
Okay. So it's tilted on its side. And I just feel like Riot Poof has, to me, that song that you said that's not Baker Baker. That was the first song when I listened to this album. I was like, holy shit, this song is fun. This is amazing. How could she make something that is so not Tori Amos to me be fantastically Tori Amos at the same time? And what I love about that song is just like, where the fuck did that come from? Same thing with this planet. We don't even know why it spins on its fucking side. They think it got hit by an asteroid. They don't really know. That's crazy. So, finally, Neptune. 1,000 oceans. Neptune's the Roman god of the sea. I also played around with the idea of 1,000 oceans being one of Jupiter's moons, Europa, because there's like a icy, frozen ocean that they don't know about. But anyway, ultimately, it fit as Neptune, obviously, as god of the sea. And that is my whole playlist. I've taken you. It's like a Miss Frizzle tour of the solar system, a la me.
So you really concepted this album out.
I took the theme and the palette, the pastiche, and made it into a fucking lame ass concept, but it was fun.
not that.
I learned about some planets. I learned about some mythology.
I loved it.
I loved it too. That's so interesting.
And I did not put 0 Point in, though I did think about it. And I do want to talk more about 0 Point when we get to your songs, and I want to tell you why I didn't include it. But we'll leave it there at my solar system.
So did you cut nothing? You kept everything.
I cut nothing and I added nothing. A purist
Very nice.
for Venus. Y'all, I've always loved Venus. I loved it from the first day. I am so impressed. And with these new headphones, I was just blown away. It's stuff I'd never heard before. And maybe it's because I was listening for this and I wanted to think about things, specifically I was like listening for things I hadn't heard before, but damn, if you have a good set of headphones or you're going to get one, anybody listening, put this album on first. I cannot believe this is not a remaster. It sounds incredible. All right.
I think that does it. That was really good. Not what I was expecting,
really
too. So it was
Really
great to listen to. Joseph, are you ready to mess with the master and show us what you got?
I am. I just want to share one quick memory that just came to me. The first time I ever tripped on mushrooms was my senior year of college, and it was right before Christmas break, and I was up all night, obviously as one is, and my father came to pick me up later the next day to take me home, and I remember sitting in the car like hungover from tripping / still maybe tripping a little bit. And my dad was always really good about letting me play whatever I wanted in the car. And I put To Venus and Back on the drive. And I think that was the first time I really heard the album, because my ears, my auditory stuff was really like something was going on with the balance. Yeah, there was an openness and I was hearing things. And so I think about that because that felt like the first time I really heard the album properly. And I am having memory of that listening again in this like new, 20-something years later with new technology and better sound quality. And I thought, shit, I remember. Like, I remember hearing things that I didn't hear before while still like coming down from this trip. Which
Did
is
your
very
dad have any? Did your dad have any thoughts on Venus?
No, he just was like.
Joey's dad is very supportive of.
He was
our
into
love
Tori.
for Ellen.
He liked a bunch of her songs. I don't know that Venus was his jam. I think he liked Glory of the 80s maybe or something like that. Like I can't quite remember, but.
Mr. Felici keeps it tight. Like he's of all the parents, he's the one who respects it the most, I think.
Well, because he loves music and movies and always wanted to, bring us to and get us, like as much of it as we could have. So he would drive us to shows, and Chris was a chauffeur to many a show with my father, right? Because he was like, "I'll drive you to Camden, sure." Like that
was awesome.
And then I'll go to Philadelphia and get some pizza, and then I'll come back for you, Yeah. So, all right, my messing. I love this little swap that we do. I actually love that Kristen always goes sort of conceptual and literary or categorical. And I, though, in my work, in my life, I'm always thinking about this stuff. I actually wind up going in the opposite direction when it comes to messing, because I want to just think about how the album sounds and the transitions and the lead-ins and the lead-outs. There was a bit of a mix here because I want to go back to what I said about how I really think that To Venus and Back is so interesting and incredible in the way that the songs exist as one entity, and then the presentation of the songs, the production and the arrangement is its own thing. And I feel validated in this thesis because I think we can agree, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that over the years, because there was 5.5 weeks, these songs weren't played that much. There weren't that many shows. Then there were, some of them showed up in solo shows in 2001. We really only started getting a lot of Venus on rotation on Scarlet's Walk. And Scarlet's Walk was like diametrically opposite of To Venus and Back in terms of concept, in terms of songwriting, in terms of the sound. So I feel like my gut that the songs themselves versus the presentation are really quite different, because you in 2002, like, you would have found me at a show with this one over here giggling at the dolphin sounds that we said that John Evans was making with the bass during Lust, right?
That one was egregious.
It was
Albany?
Albany 2003.
We remember.
It was like he was trolling us. It was just like shooting across the, yeah.
John Evans, come on the show and talk about it with us.
I mean, he's incredible, but I was like, this is excessive. The song itself was kind of slow and plodding. It's long and slow and stretched out. So some of these songs have lost urgency as they are performed as time has gone on, in a way that's interesting and not common for Tori. It doesn't mean that there's still not, like exciting to hear, again, set list, yada, yada. But something happened where maybe some of them were being overplayed, or she was adapting them to the current mood and style and pacing of those tours. But yeah, so that's all to say that I think that To Venus and Back really exists in its it's in this like little cocoon of sound, and it doesn't always translate out of that cocoon. Some of it does, a lot of it does, but some of it doesn't. And I think that it's interesting, because that's, I believe Tori does what she wants to do, and she does it for whatever reason she wants to do, and I'm always for whatever she decides, but it feels most noticeable. The translation of the music to live performance from To Venus and Back feels most noticeable to me for some reason. Anyway, so that's all to say. Yeah, go ahead, Matt. What do you say?
I was just going to say, maybe that's why we don't hear too many of them today, right? I mean,
yeah.
We didn't get any Venus tracks on Gold Dust. We didn't hear a lot of them in, I think, 2017. They were still really like rare-ish in 2022 and 2023. So it's interesting that you bring that up, and I'd never really thought about that before, but I think what you say makes a lot of sense, because to me, Venus is, I never think of Venus as being like something I'm clamoring to hear live. I always want to hear it on the record, because I do believe that is like the perfect place for it to exist, just because of all the technological hoo-ha that's going on with it.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to that, and yeah, so I'm glad we're on the same page in that. So with that in mind, I start my To Venus and Back begins with Concertina, because Concertina feels like the true embodiment of the creative process of Tori Amos. Like, it's not, her mind is not a solo piano tinkering, creating something. I think that her creative space, her safe creative space, is one of chaos. And I think that Concertina begins with a chaotic, the fact that she allows that synthesizer to really overpower the piano while she's sort of like desperately trying to like get, like, the piano doesn't stop the whole song. It's right, like it's there the whole time, but so is the synthesizer. There's like there's a tension that is happening. They're competing, yeah,
but also complementary. They're both, right?
They're doing both, exactly. They're competing with each other, but they're also complementing each other.
Would you say that's in a way that maybe we hear in Beauty of Speed a little bit, or is it different?
I think it's different, because I think Beauty of Speed, I think those two pianos are at the same level. I think that the piano might be is mixed quieter on Concertina. It's just, it's very quiet. and the synthesizer is very loud. So I think that there's a purposeful layering, and part of me wonders if she even like had a version of it where she would have just done the synthesizer and not the piano, and like she brought it out. Like I don't know, but. And it's not, and they're not being played at the same time, I don't believe, because when you see her live do it, the pacing is slower, and she's not doing like these are the same two like going at it at the same time. But yeah, so I like that it begins the album with this sort of inhalation, like you hear her breath, and then she starts, and because it's a concertina. The fear, a chill that bends. This I swear, you're the fiercest calm I've been in. It's her love letter to music, to composition, to this unknown realm that keeps her balanced and that is helping her to survive. Right. Concertina is one of those songs that like I've always really enjoyed on the album. I like the sort of urgency and the sort of distortion and sort of the distance of the vocal. I listened to the remix to see if I wanted to put that on instead, and it's too clear. It's too cleaned up. So I said no, and I went back to this one. I don't know. I think it makes a great opener, and it really brings us into one of the not one of the concepts of the record, but one of the one of the threads of the record about performance and presence in what she's doing, and especially if she's going through a really trying time emotionally, physically, mentally, to be grounded in composition and performance, I think is really important. But again, it's not just her like a solo song. Like this is what she actually hears in her mind. She hears this sort of mad musical genius composition stuff. So we start with Concertina, and then we move into Suede. And Suede is a perfect song. It is we are floating in that bayou with her. It's another instance of content and form marrying together to make you feel like you're in the song and that you are experiencing what is happening. It feels like such a sister to Cruel, and it's just an impeccably produced song. And to get that "Oh Little Sister" part, that sort of jazzy, bluesy moment that is so it's so Tori, so quintessential Tori. That might be the one piece that feels most Choir Girl-esque. Has a little Liquid Diamonds, a little Pandora vibe to it, but then the perfect way it transitions back into "You'll Forgive Me One Day," and then we go back into that like electronic sound. It's so marvelous. And that is a song I think is always performed well live. I think she has reinvented it many times, and it's always been good. I just adore it. I would be lying if I said I, after all these years, could tell you what it's about. I still feel like it's one of those things that defies interpretation, and it's a mood. It's a darkness. It's a I feel like we're in a black hole, and so we go from Suede to Juarez, which again is marrying content and form. Tori has paraphrasing, but she said that this is the music playing out of the car of the rapist who's raping the woman in the desert in the song, which is such a fucked up, dark, but also very meta, right? We talk about Tori and me and the gun, and obviously she's thinking about sexual violence, and but the idea that like there's this like almost spirit song that is observing the violence and the horror, but also serenading, is so, I give myself goosebumps saying that. It's so like witchy and like it's both compassionate and deeply cynical. And it's such talk about a song that, especially in the way it exists on the proper album, to get the second song, you're like, there's no piano in this song. Like, is she playing anything? Like, she's whispering. It's a weird vibe. It's a dark vibe, but it feels like it belongs next to Suede. And no angel came. The earth is barren. It's poisoned. The desert wants flesh, right? And so for me, we go from there to Datora, because there has to be a response. There has to be a replenishment. The garden is growing. It's overgrowing. It's a mess. It's a beautiful process, but it's manic. It's gritty. And the garden is, Tori said that she basically wrote it because there was a storm and her garden was a mess, and she was cataloging all of the flowers and plants that she had. And so we're getting just like a catalog of what's in her garden. But there's that "get out of my garden" refrain over and over. And God, the fucking piano on Datora, oof, talk about brilliant. I mean, just so, that's a shame we've never heard just that like first half of the song like that. Although of course she did use the bridge in "Take to the Sky" in 2014 to great effect. So I'm grateful that we get to hear "Is There Room in My Heart for you to follow your heart and not need more blood from the tip of your star," which is some of the best writing and melody ever from her. And Datora is just a wild ride, and it, I don't have to tell anybody about how it shifts into this other gear. But there's something about the dividing canon where suddenly moving into the biblical. And so to go from that into bliss makes a lot of sense, because now we have "Father, I killed my monkey. I let it out to taste the sweet of spring, to test my tether," right? Made of you, but not enough for you. So whether it's her father or the father, we start to move into, we're moving from the garden into sort of one of the more prominent and evergreen for Tori tensions and conflicts in her life, which is patriarchy and religion and her relationship to the church and her father who represents the church, right? So to have the church be, you're thinking about the father, but your father is a representative of that. We don't think about it on those simple terms enough, but like that's a lot. And then we go from bliss into lust. And I wanted to move from bliss to lust. It sounds great together, but also I'm thinking about bliss and sort of the biblical sense. And then I'm thinking about lust and this sort of domestic heartbreak of it. But also we can't forget that lust is one of the deadly sins, and that lust is not, and yet you're supposed to find lust in the structure of marriage, but it is sinful. It is, it causes as many problems as it solves, right? And I just love the album version of this. I love the drums. I love the echo. I love the it's so cinematic. It's so beautiful. The ending is pitch perfect. And it's another one of those songs that's just so perfect on record that, doesn't feel as realized when I hear it live. But I go from lust into 1,000 Oceans, because 1,000 Oceans is, it could be about grief, but it also feels like a pledge or a promise to love and to take care of and stay with someone, even if they are growing more and more distant, which then felt like a perfect transition into Josephine. And I was doing the same research that you were doing, Kristen, and suddenly Lust, 1,000 Oceans, and Josephine feel like this trilogy of songs. The problems in the marriage bed, Josephine's commitment to Napoleon, and then, why does he cut her loose? He cuts her loose because she can't produce an heir. He waits until she can give, and he waits and he waits and he waits. And she is waiting for him. She'll cry 1,000 oceans. But it's like, actually, not tonight, girl. Not to be of use, impossible. So, he gets rid of her. So when I think of the three that way, it's like, so we have this little mini narrative that feels like it's emerging out of this. I could not divorce Riot Poof from Josephine because Tori is, they're telling us that they must be attached because of the transition, and I'm too anal to like hear that break in the transition, like around the album. So even though I don't necessarily understand the narrative shift from it, I think that it's definitely the one place where I have to stick to something traditional and keep it together. I love Riot Poof. I think that it's, we've said a lot about it. It's a wild, strange song, and it's a fantastic gay anthem. But again, a very strange narrative that I can't quite pinpoint. Though telling the Riot Poofs to blossom, it's like Mother Tori is saying, yes, go, fuck, enjoy. And I can't help but think about Dante's Circles of Hell and how sodomites were in burning sand and fire was raining down upon them because they could not... my interpretation has always been, and probably very common, English major interpretation of that is the homosexuals can't create, they can't produce. So, no water to put out the flames. It's going to be fire on fire. It's not going to make anything, right? It can't produce anything natural. And I think about that in relationship to Josephine, and I wonder if she put those two together because she was thinking about what Josephine could not produce, and then, maybe she was thinking about that, maybe she wasn't, but there must be a reason that those two are linked literally together. So I was thinking about it from those terms. And then obviously from Riot Poof, you must continue the decadence and go into Glory of the 80s. And Glory of the 80s, we must note, has fucking harpsichord on it, and we cannot hear it because for some reason Tori was bold enough to give us a little burst of it in the beginning and then turn it way, way down in the mix. I don't know why, but it felt like sort of a troll to us. Everybody was asking her, when's the harpsichord coming back? When's it coming back? And she's like, oh, here it is. Let me turn it down really, really low so you can't hear it. I love Glory of the 80s. I think it's really fun. I think it also still feels very queer. And Venus is probably her queer record, I would think, right? Would you agree, Matt? Like, we talk about Tori making us gay and Under the Pink, but I think Venus, that is her queer album.
I think if we're going to pick any one album, I don't know if I feel like they are all queer. That's my official position on it. And I think that would make a great episode.
Yeah, okay, we'll come back to it, but it feels pretty feels pretty gay to me.
Y'all got me sold that ADP was the queer album after last time.
I guess they are all queer. I guess that's the answer.
Maybe you're confused because ADP came out during Pride.
Maybe. And there's wigs and dress up and stuff.
It's all the looks. It's the serving the looks.
Then I have 0 Point as my second to last.
Oh Lord.
And I think
Triggered.
it's I think it's an incredible song. I'm so glad that she finally gave it to us. And it's epic. It feels like many of the things that are happening in the other songs exist in little pieces of 0 Point. 0 Point feels almost like looking back and retrospectively compiling highlights from the other songs. We have almost every theme that I mentioned: the decadence, the
Little Sister,
the betrayal,
Water,
of romance, water, definite certain allusions to miscarriage and loss, destruction. Like there's the historical. There's I don't know. It's doing everything, and part of me wonders if that's one of the reasons why she didn't choose to put it on the record. Like she said, I just wasn't finished.
My theory.
Right, but she just like, I kind of like did this like culling of all this stuff, and it would just be kind of repetitive or something. But I like it. I like looking back on it. And my final song is Spring Haze. Spring Haze closes the record because Certain These Clouds Go Somewhere. It bookends Concertina where the clouds are descending. In some ways, it feels like the most straightforward and most characteristic Tori Amos song on the record. And so I like ending that way. It has beautiful piano, great vocals, great lyrics, feels a little more organic than the other songs, but still ends with like this grinding noise, this grinding sound, right? That feels still very much like we're hitting this, something is changing, something is shifting, like tectonic plates are moving, like something is happening,
something big,
something big.
It's
waiting
like
on Sunday to drown.
Like, to me, it feels like a precursor to I Can't See New York or something.
Well,
Well,
and so you make a good point, and so I wanted to end with it too, because then shortly after it would then go on to be the set closer for Scarlet's Walk, and I think that it worked really, really well as a closer. I didn't think it would, but it does, and it of course is related. She does I Can't See New York and then goes into Spring Haze. So that's
and 2023 version of Spring Haze. By the way, we were all together, I believe, for one of those, and holy moly, she really brought the thunder to that party.
But I don't watch like the look of it. And all we do is circle, 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 yeah. And I found up with my ages, and it bleeds into where you resist. And my only way out is to go so far in.
it was really good.
yeah, she
So,
popped
Joey,
that
you-
posse.
Yeah, she did. Oh boy. Joey, you cut nothing, added one.
Yes, exactly.
right.
So
Got
we
it.
have our 12 songs. All
Have
right,
you
Matthew.
both heard 0 Point live, by the way?
No, I've never heard it live.
It's only been played in Mesa.
She's
Where
done it
else?
twice. She's done it twice,
Hold
I
on.
think.
Tori said, I know it was.
Was it
Mesa?
Mesa
was
both times?
looking it up. Wait, have you heard it?
Me?
Matthew?
No.
No, that's a
Okay, so
that's
Mesa
a serious
14,
rarity.
Mesa 2014, and 2023 Paris.
Oh, okay.
Yes, okay, that
Makes
makes
sense.
sense.
The desert, called Paris.
The full song. It was only the full song in 2014, I think, though.
I want to talk about it a little bit after Matthew does this. Just one observation I have.
Okay,
I'm ready for this. Whatever happens next, I'm nervous.
give it
Guys,
to us,
are you
Matt.
ready for the expanded special edition of To Venus and Back?
Oh God,
It's
here
called-
we go.
It's called To Mazer and Back.
Oh Lord.
So, excuse me. Sorry, I'm burning a candle and it's really smothering me tonight. Are you guys burning candles, by the way? What are you burning?
No, we're not allowed to burn
Nope.
candles in this apartment. Matthew, do you want to tell
Okay.
everybody?
No,
Secrets
it's not my
revealed.
fault. It's not my fault.
Revealed.
Anyway, I have a Boy Smells Crush candle, which is a fruity candle, but I'm really into it. It's like fruity spicy.
Okay.
Recommended.
The
It's
new
on
one?
sale. On sale right now.
It's not that Citrush one
No,
or whatever.
it's not the Poppers candle. No.
Oh.
Okay, so this one, we say that these challenge us. It's fun. I had a hard time getting this one together, getting it in order, and this is the one I changed more than any of the other ones that I've worked on so far. I had to call it at one point and just say, all right, no more. It's locked. So when I do these lists, I like to try and start with the song that I think is most representative of the era, the sound. And the way I see each of these songs is as though they are like stars in a constellation, so I also want a little bit celestial. That's my only concept, other than some call and response that I picked up on in some of the lyrics. But I started with Suede.
Ooh.
I just wanted to conjure something by the dark of the moon right off the bat. That's the Conjuring. So I really liked it. And then from Suede, I go into 0 Point.
Whoa.
Little Sister, Little Sister.
Oh my God.
I really liked that a lot.
That is a heavy opening.
It's a really heavy opening. 0 Point then is followed by Juarez, which
Woo!
keeps it going. I like the sounds at the beginning of Juarez juxtaposed with sort of like the desperation of everything disintegrating into the photon band, right? And then after Juarez, I've put Live Sugar.
Oh my
Excuse
God.
me.
Oh, okay.
Because it was
This feels like a
recorded during a sound check,
Oh
and
my
I
God.
really
Here we
liked
go.
after those
too.
3 songs of
This shit's
really
falling
heavy technological influence to really just have that straight up Tory rock and roll song. Sugar has never been better. Sugar deserves a prominent place in Tory's history, and I thought it played really well after Juarez.
Okay.
What's funny is that I think the original version of Sugar could actually also fit onto Venus and Back because it's
for
an
sure.
all synthesizer song. It has that little industrial beat. Like that's kind of funny actually.
I agree.
So from Sugar, we go into Riot Poof.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's sexy. I like that.
Although you still cheated, I do like it.
Riot Poof into Spring Haze, which is a favorite of mine from the album. Spring Haze into Concertina. Again, it's the clouds descending. Certain these clouds go somewhere. And for Riot Poof and Spring Haze, I like to call in response of you know what you know, and then well I know it's just a spring haze. So little fun little bits of language in there. From Spring Haze, Concertina, we go to Glory of the 80s, which is the only track I considered cutting. But I thought it fit really nicely here. And then after Glory of the 80s, I have Datura. I've loved Datura since the first time I heard it. It blew my mind the first time I heard it. And I have asked Tori Amos to play this song so many times. So many times. And I've asked her in print also as a journalist if she's going to play it on her tours. And she always says she's going to, but she never does. So I'm feeling a little bit like Karen Binns requesting Fair Motor Maids of Japan. I asked her in the Rockettes dressing room once, and she looked at me like I had 5 heads coming out of my body.
Why doesn't she understand that we need to hear it more than just as a bridge?
I mean, so on the album, it's 9 minutes. Live,
Give me 4.
with jams, it could get probably unruly. You know, that's a long, complicated song.
Well, she could
Even
cut the
half.
second half.
Yeah,
She
give
could
me
just
half.
do the.
I don't know what the deal is. Some enterprising young journalist should ask about it, though.
The next generation of journalists, it's on you.
Yes. From Datura, I go to 1,000 Oceans, which is a song I've always liked. I know there's a lot of division in the community around this song. I think it's really beautiful and really
I actually
pure.
would say that I think that the video for 1,000 Oceans really helped retrain how people thought about that song too. It's a great
Yeah.
video, very
It is.
unexpected visuals and concept. And
Yeah,
I think that
one of her
it
best.
actually, and I think it actually helped to make people hear the song differently, which I think is a good thing.
100%. And Joey, like you, I couldn't not hear these 3 songs together. So it was 1,000 Oceans, Josephine, and then Lust. I do think they have a lot in common. I think that they pick up on what the other's putting down.
Weird.
And I thought they really linked up. And, you know, I guess I'm seeing them as like romantic songs in the end.
Yeah.
And I thought a lot about Josephine too. I really want to see the Ridley Scott Napoleon movie. I've always been very drawn to that story. I've heard it's pretty remarkable for the battle scenes, and I've heard the actors are really great. but I don't think we have a definitive Napoleon and Josephine love story yet from cinema.
Somebody will have to do like a Netflix series or like a Max. Like somebody will have to give it like a real 8 hours, 10 hours. I think
the John Adams HBO Prestige miniseries treatment.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe. Yeah.
Paul Giamatti is going to win an Oscar, or Emmy, not an Oscar. He's probably never going to win an Oscar. Sorry, Paul.
No. Poor guy.
So from Lust, I'm going to go into Siren.
What?
Huh?
What happened?
You too. I'm leaving. Goodbye.
Lust
I don't
into
want to
Si-
do this
Lu-
podcast anymore.
Lust into Siren. Oh, I get creative and everyone quits. Kristen Keys gets crazy and we have to just talk about it. I don't understand.
You're sticking a
know what-
1996 soundtrack song onto Venus?
That's 1998.
Yeah.
7 at
No,
best.
it's not. Great Expectations,
Expectations
came out after
came out-
Boys for Pele.
It came out in 1998.
She wrote it in 96.
Anyway, I think
Anyway.
the blips
is
and
not
blobs
okay.
and the little noises sound
This
really
isn't
nice in the
okay.
soundscape of
1997 film.
This-
Great Expectations.
Anyway,
well, and then I end this record with Bliss.
okay.
Kristen, why did you wince when I said I end this record with Bliss?
I just don't feel like I can wait till the very end for Bliss after Siren. And I love Siren. I just don't.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. I love Siren.
Who doesn't love Siren?
It doesn't go here.
I think it does. I think it's great.
She doesn't even
And
go here.
I had a couple of other tricks up my sleeve for this one too. I
for the others,
experimented with putting Never Seen Blue onto this
What is
playlist.
wrong with you?
I thought about Me and You for this playlist,
Oh,
which
God,
is
of course.
I thought about Me and You a
I
little
could
bit
actually
too.
see that.
Yeah.
and I also thought about Carnival for this playlist.
You know, I was waiting for you to put Carnival on. That's why I made that snarky comment in the text. I was like, is he going to put Carnival on here?
Carnival, I think, out of all of these tracks, probably has the most close to Venus sound.
Well, I think
There's,
she
like-
clearly properly recorded it during those sessions. Like, it definitely, yeah.
Yep.
But there's like
Yeah.
a threshold for Venus, which I don't feel like Carnival, Me and You. Like, I don't feel like those songs rise above the bar. No?
I don't know. I mean, they didn't make my playlist. I'll say that.
Okay. Okay. I'm
But
just so
I-
surprised
I-
about Siren. Siren feels so transitional to me. It feels
I-
it feels like a straight up B-side / soundtrack song to me.
I wanted to be really creative and experimental and follow Tori's example
Okay.
by
yeah. No.
really interpreting it in a sort of a little bit more of a less rigid way, I guess.
The only reason that I would not put Siren on anything, I considered it, I was thinking about it during the Choir Girl, is that she doesn't like it.
That bothers me.
And she didn't produce it. So she feels, that's why it sounds a little bit different live. And I think that she's changed the pace. I think she wanted a slower song because
I could see
ultimately
that.
live it's slower. And I think that she's not happy with maybe even the sound quality. Like it's a little bit like it doesn't sound as rich as it would have if she was doing it all herself. And I think that in some ways I wouldn't be surprised if her experience recording Great Expectations actually informed her decision to have a band, but then do a band sound the way she wanted it. So that's the only reason that I'm not. And there's something about Siren that's like, it's like kind of it's like super cunty. It's like I'm gonna squeal kind of unintelligible lyrics, and I'm gonna only give you like 4 sentences for you to put in the lyric booklet, and I'm gonna like there's something about it like it was the first time that she withheld what she was even saying. It was hard to understand her. It was hard to she didn't even provide them in the liner notes, all the lyrics. So I feel like that's sort of that like Tori who is pissed off with somebody and reacting to it. So it's interesting. So yeah, That's a curious inclusion, but I think I always have a weird like blockage with the. I love it. I listen to it, but I love Siren the song more than Siren, the version on Great Expectations. You know, that's interesting.
So I added 3, got rid of none.
Got it.
Amazing.
Got it. Oof. Well, this has been a long Christian journey. We've really achieved a lot. Venus is a great album, and I'm glad that we were able to be inspired to take these very different journeys. And now we have to think about what are our favorite bits.
Before we go to favorite bits.
Oh, you have something to say about 0 Point?
Kinda.
Yeah, I thought you did. No, I'm not being funny. I thought you.
No,
really
I have
did.
so many.
Your time is coming. Yeah.
Your time is here. I have so many thoughts about 0 Point, but okay, so in 1999, you know, she felt like she had to pick between Datura and 0 Point, so the legend goes, as we understand it. And we know that like albums could only fit a certain run time on a CD. Do you think like in 2024 would she have made the same choice to have one or the other because they're both long and they both unfold, or like was it because of runtime, or do you think she would include both? Like, do you think she would do it differently now? I guess
I'm not sure. I think that from what I understand and from what I've read Tori saying in terms of like longer songs, I think she would probably just stick with one song of that length. Maybe she would edit the other song down a little bit if it was like really that dire that it made the record. It's interesting because I think you're right. There are a lot of similarities just in terms of structure. And, you know, there's a lot of similarities in terms of structure on a lot of these songs. Like a lot of them have that, you know, she talked about Jungian duality a lot in interviews during this time. And I think a lot of the songs reflect actual duality in terms of structure, instrumentation. You hear it on Suede, you hear it on Datura with two very completely different movements.
Right.
And I think you hear it throughout some of the other songs too, if you really listen for it. So I think having 0 Point on the proper album commercially is probably a no-go in 2024 or 25 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she would have kept it as is. I think if she even had 0 Point completely finished, I think she still would have kept Datura and not put 0 Point on, because I also think that she enjoys a bit of lore and she likes to create and participate in. So 0 Point becomes like Motormaids, or it becomes like the story of why Honey isn't on there, right?
Right.
So I think that she actually likes, I think she thought that 0 Point would be released to us sooner than it was. I think she maybe even imagined that there would be a proper, you know, there'd be B-sides or something.
Yeah.
Like she probably thought she was going to do something differently than she was able to do it, and then things just got away from her. But I think that she wanted 0 Point to, like, you know, be a mystery to us that we would then get someday. I think people even doubted if 0 Point existed for a very long time, right? We thought, oh, this must be a demo. This must be, you know, something that she didn't even like record. And then suddenly to get on the piano to see that it was going to be on there was, you know, such a delight. And then to hear it, have it be that good was like, you know, fuck, this is awesome. But I think that she delights in a bit of that, or she did delight in a bit of that. And so I think that even if she had it finished, I think she would have stuck with the record as it was. I think that she would have not included 0 Point.
The one thing I'll say about it, and this is my own personal, like this is just my personal take on 0 Point, is I think there is like a very, like when I think of Choir Girl, I think of a very raw nerve of somebody who has like just had these miscarriages, and of course it's still happening, you know, like she's still going through it and recording Venus, but like in the packaging, the production, the release of these albums, there is like a stage of healing that I feel in Venus, that she's moved on to this like new stage. And for me, hearing 0 Point just like from what we know from Piece by Piece and her story, when she finds out that she's miscarrying, she's in Paris and then she's traveling back to London or wherever. To me, that like desert called Paris, 0.0 ground.
Right.
To me, it just feels so raw, and that's ultimately why I didn't think. I mean, of course, it fits here. This is where it belongs. This is its home for sure.
Right.
But why I didn't like put it on this is there's just like a almost like a part of herself that I felt like she had to close and move on, to like move as an artist and as a person. Not that she didn't want to share that with us, but it's like that little girl in that song holding her hand till she's warm. It just feels so raw to me in a way that like I just feel like she's trying to get past a bit with Venus. It's still there, to your point, it's still there, but it's like it's a to me a very painful song, and so I understand like. And I don't know if that's part of why she didn't include it. I think Datura makes sense. I can't imagine the world without Datura.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just so raw that I'm like, yeah, I can understand just like putting that aside, you know?
Yeah, and it's also possible that she, do I think she put this kind of thought into it? Probably not, but it's possible that subconsciously in the back of her mind, she was like, I don't want to have to talk about this song, you know?
Sure.
So like what you're saying makes sense. Like I just did a year of talking about, loss. And again, like I wonder if she didn't truly didn't think this would keep happening to her. So the emotions that she's, tapping into with 0 Point. 0 Point feels it's different than Spark. It's different than Playboy Mommy.
It's different.
But somehow it's almost I don't know. It's almost darker in some ways because it feels like a hellish journey.
It feels.
So
It feels
I get what
less,
you mean.
It feels less out. It feels like out of touch with reality, almost like a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like a little bit out of
dissociative.
a little out of your head. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's the sense
Yes.
I get from 0 Point.
Yeah,
It's that
yeah.
moment of like, is my world gonna change? And like, I'm in this beautiful city of love and shit's happening to me. I don't know. I just, when you've been through it, you've been through it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes,
0 Point's time has come on this podcast for sure.
we talked about 0 Point more than anybody on the planet probably has ever talked about 0 Point before tonight.
No way. I'm sure our
When
other
songs
friends.
of Tori Amos gets on
Yeah.
the 7-hour
think-
episode.
Yeah,
Right?
Efren will put us to shame. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we need to move towards the end. It's almost midnight here. So favorite moment on To Venus and Back. There's so many good ones, but what is your favorite?
I don't know why I love it, but I've always like rewinded the Luna Riviera part in Spring Haze. Something, I don't know about the delivery, and then the drums just pick up a little bit. It is just so good,
It's so beautiful, yeah.
perfect. And then, my man is moistening and Riot Poof has always been a highlight for me.
Do you sing that to Kel?
No comment. Lost in the marriage bed, y'all.
Maddie, favorite moment?
It's always been the same for me. It's the lyric in Josephine that I love so much.
It's your
In an
song.
army's strength, therein lies the denouement. I have that lyric of that song tattooed on my body, and it's very important to me.
It was also your
forget.
first Tori Amos request, right?
I
First song you
did
requested.
once show her this tattoo, and I said, "This is my way of requesting this song,"
And she didn't play it.
she did play it. It's the only time she's ever played anything I've ever asked her to play.
This was
on-
before you knew her professionally, right? This
Chicago
was
before I
just,
knew her professionally. I was just a fan, just like you, and she played it for me.
What
She played it
a twat.
solo in Chicago. It was the
Thanksgiving.
only time she'd ever played
Mine too.
it solo on that tour. It was really beautiful. And I did want to, I'll add just one thing. I know we're running late, but I did ask her many years later about that lyric in print. and that was really great. So I said, what is the lyric, "In an army's strength, therein lies the denouement," mean to you? And I think it probably caught her off guard because we were supposed to be talking about Unrepentant Geraldines, but she said, when you think your army is so strong that you invade Russia and lose it all, so your end becomes lost. Although you have the strongest army in the world, you lose. And you lose because of narcissism that's of the moment, of the ego. Not seeing your humanity, not seeing that if you're really focused and playing out the possibilities and probabilities, then you make very destructive decisions. When you think you're invincible or fireproof, however you want to say that, then you get careless. Even though you have the strongest army in the world, when you're careless, you can destroy everything.
That was her being caught off guard. Jeez.
Yeah.
She knew exactly what that fucking meant to her.
Wow.
Yeah. I think we can
Wow,
apply
wow.
that to everything going on in the world right now.
I was gonna say like Tory for president.
Right, yeah.
That's a
And
guiding philosophy if I've ever heard one.
And Joey, what is your standout moment?
I mean, there's so many, but very, very simply, always, I literally rewind it to this part over. I did it just today multiple times driving in the car. I'm like, wait, the take it with your terror side. I said steady. That final steady. Ugh,
Yeah.
it is fucking great. It is a perfect moment. I love Bliss. I can hear Bliss every show forever. Bliss is incredible. Bliss is bliss. Well, Bliss is bliss, but it's there's something about it. It was maybe one of the first times, or maybe the most that they've captured the energy of a live performance on a studio track that way with the band. The way her voice goes up when I've said it all. The way it goes up and and just the gymnastics of the vocal feel like that. That's what she does live, and it's always so good because I think the song is crafted to be like almost a perfect live song or something,
And that's captured really well in the music video too, right? The energy of that live performance, and there's a moment. Bliss is just, it is a song that gives and gives and gives, whether it's live or on the album. But
it always works. Always.
There's also a moment in the video that I'm always thinking of, and it's really quick and happens really fast. She's just looking into the mirror when she's about to go on stage before she takes the stage, and I just think that's the best moment. That's what I want to see. I want to see what it's like right before you hit the stage. I want to know what you're thinking about when you're about to go face a bunch of screaming people out in the audience who are just there for your every word and every sound. Like, what goes through your head?
If only we had that 1998 concert footage with all that backstage stuff.
If only.
This was fantastic. Everybody, thank you for watching and listening. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Kristen. Please follow us. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, maybe. I don't know. Anything else y'all want to say? Subscribe, rate,
think that's
review,
it.
5 stars.
We love you.
We'll be seeing you soon with our next joint, which is going to be Unrepentant Geraldines.
Oh, I'm ready. You know what I'm ready for.
I'm ready for it.
I know
too.
what you're ready for.
I already
You know what
started
I'm
playing
ready
with that. We're ready for that Giants rolling pin.
That's not what I'm ready for.
How many do we have left? We have Geraldine's, Night of Hunters, Strange Little Girls,
Are we
Boys
doing
for
that?
Pele. We're doing what?
What do you mean? Are we doing that? How dare you ask that on this channel? We've
What,
already
Strange
told
Little-
you.
Strange Little Girls, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are, because we can also play with, we can do some fun stuff with that, with sort of imagining other covers and stuff like that. That could be fun.
Can we?
I
Okay.
think
anyway,
I think
we'll
we can.
discuss.
I think we can.
I don't know.
And then
I feel like the rules are being bent again.
I
know.
guess around the holidays we'll do the Winter Graces.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Am I missing an album? Am I missing a record, or is that it? That's it. Okay.
That's it.
All right. We're getting there. We're making it
just so
happen.
we can give a preview, we will be ending season 1 with Boys for Pele just to keep you
Of course.
hanging on till the very end.
Of course. Yes. That's going to be
That's all for now.
That's going to be a put aside. We'll put aside. You'll put aside 3 hours for listening, and we'll put aside 5 hours for recording because it's going to be a big one.
Great.
Pele's
we try
gonna
to
be
stay on
big.
track, but we can't help it.
We're fine. We're under 2 hours. We're going to end this episode now. And season 2 is coming, and it's going to be different. It's going to be fucking juicy, and it's going to be unrepentant. You know what I mean?
It's going to be a dripping mango of a season.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.